Anna, and I'm from Denmark and France, and I'm 28 years old. And I'm spending my first night in Mangawhai tonight. My mom is from France, and my dad is from Denmark, so I've got both the nationalities and I've been living in both countries. I live in the capital in Copenhagen. I'm studying to be a medical doctor. I think I want to be a pediatrician, but yeah, it depends on many things. That's very competitive in Denmark, so whereas it's not in the US and I don't know about here, so I'm pretty open to like specialization in other countries than Denmark, and I'm actually looking into maybe working here for a year maybe. I don't know, I used to dream of getting my own horse. I did horseback riding for 15 years, and I was reading all these books about this girl who had her own horse in the backyard, and I always wanted that. So I called the authorities and asked them if it was possible and all that, but my parents never agreed. That dream probably filled up a lot of my childhood. What am I most proud of? I don't know if I can say I'm proud of it, but I'm glad that I'm I'm an independent person. Like I feel like I can overcome many things on my own. My plans for the future, I definitely want to keep traveling. Like right now I'm pretty inspired to go sailing somehow. So I think like recent future, if we think like 5 years ahead, I would want to do a long-term sailing travel, maybe half a year or so. I went under the Spirit of New Zealand when I was here back 10 years ago, and I think that sort of kick-started my interest. And then my dad's been sailing a little bit, but most of the time the boat's been standing in the garden. And then I took the sailing certificate 2 years ago, where I sailed around some of the islands in Denmark. Denmark consists of, I think, of maybe 150 or 200 islands. So a lot of people sail around. And I have a friend who's currently sailing around the world. She's been out for a year and a half, and I feel very inspired by that. I would like to be remembered as someone who was good to other people, I think. And maybe it's how I want to be remembered, but it's also how I want to try to be now, or like the people that I respect a lot are people that are generally like respectful and kind and open and like calm. So I don't know, I try to be like that. That's how I would like people to remember me one day. That would be my friends and my family. That's what's keeping me away from traveling maybe as much as I would like to, because the more I've been traveling the later years, I've been traveling, like been away for a few months every time, on different exchanges and so on. And like the more times I go out, the more I'm actually glad to come back to my friends, and I appreciate my social environment very much. When I think back to a situation where I found myself in a situation where I wasn't happy, maybe, it still taught me something. So no, I would say even the times of life where I was struggling with some things, I still would say that I don't regret them, because they've become part of who I am. So I try to take it as lessons of life instead of regrets. So death of someone like very close to me that meant a lot, that would probably be my grandfather in 2008 down in France. So he was probably the most like steady part of my life for a very, very long time. And so after my parents broke up and everything, that was still really stable. He would always make me happy whenever I called him, compared to maybe some other persons, including my parents or my grandmother, and sometimes they would have like frustrations to let out, and they would let them out to me as well. But it seemed like my grandfather would never ever let frustrations out to me. Like he was always happy, always like accepting life as it was, and just full of good advice. So he passed away while I was in Greenland. So I was pretty far away, but I traveled pretty fast to France to be at the funeral. I think maybe part of me coming here was because of that. I mean, I'd been dreaming about going on exchange for quite some time, but I think the timing was quite perfect. like I've experienced death before that, like professionally with the medical studies, of course. And so I remember especially one time there was a father about my father's age, and he had a daughter of about my age, and he was in the department of gastrosurgery, so that was what I was going to talk to him about. But while he was there, he was diagnosed with cancer in the brain. It had spread to the brain, so it was a pretty serious diagnosis. So I think that was probably the time during the studies where I was most touched, I think. It was hard to sort of keep the professional barrier. Yeah, that was one time where I had to take a break, both because of them but also because of myself, and then I went back to them half an hour later. Yeah.